Hello, I'm Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, joining me today is a very, very dear friend of mine and Father Bavone. I mean, we've known each other for decades, fighting the good fight there, of course. And our goal here is not to just fight abortion, we're here to end it, bring it to an end. And of course, Mark Crutcher is the president of Life Dynamics. And they have had some of the best and most innovative ideas how to keep the abortion industry on the run and eventually close it down. So on today's show, we're going to talk about how you can get involved out there in the highways and byways of America, and you can help us bring an end to abortion. So Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Janet. And when you start talking about decades and stuff, you make us all sound so old. And I guess we are, but
we're getting there. But of course, you and me and Father Frank, we have all vowed, haven't we, that in our lifetime, we're going to see this through, aren't we?
Or die trying, one or the other.
Exactly. We'll die with our boots on, as they say, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So just give everyone a quick snapshot in a little history of Life Dynamics, because, some of the projects that some of the youngins are doing out there, some people think they're brand new ideas, but I know you guys have been on the front lines exposing and investigating the abortion industry, like we said, for decades. So just give us a little background about LDI.
Well, I started Life Dynamics in '92, and my idea was that if there were things that were being done in the pro-life movement by other groups, we wouldn't do those things. Let them do that. They're the experts at what they do. But there were a lot of holes that needed to be plugged in the pro-life effort. And one of them, of many, was the intelligence gathering. We didn't really have a good intelligence gathering operation, and you don't win wars without intelligence gathering. And so we started going undercover real quickly early on in our history, and we were the group that revealed the trafficking in baby body parts. As you mentioned, other groups now have come back and redone the stuff that we did, but we're the ones who actually came out with it. And we revealed the trafficking in body parts. We are the ones who got out the price list and the brochures that they put out and showed how this ghastly practice was going on. We were undercover in an abortion clinic in Overland Park, Kansas for 31 months, gathering this information, and in various other clinics around the country as well.
And Mark, that happened in the 90s, didn't it? That undercover work, right?
Body parts? late 90s and early 2000s, yeah. But it'd been going on for a while. We just didn't know about it until we had this undercover operative that we were able to get in to get us this information. We also revealed, we're the ones who did the Child Predator Project, which has been, again, redone by some younger people now, but showing that Planned Parenthood and the National Abortion Federation are operating a nationwide pedophile protection racket. Right. And protecting the men who rape children. And we revealed that in the early 90s as well, or mid 90s. And that continues on to this very day. Planned Parenthood is still doing that because our legislative process and our law enforcement process lacks the will to go after them. And so they're still protecting these men.
And so, Mark, so people understand about child predator. What this is, brothers and sisters, is very simply, when a minor child, young girl, is brought in for an abortion, they're supposed to report that, aren't they, Mark, as like statutory rape? Because if a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl is getting an abortion, well, there's something wrong there, isn't there? And that's supposed to be reported. And isn't it the fact that that's the sweeping it under the rug, the abortion clinics? In fact, I can tell you from testimonies of Women for Silent No More, when they were teenagers and had their abortion and they were underage, Planned Parenthood told them, don't tell us that when you come in. Don't tell us your age when you come in.
Well, people, yes. And we did an undercover investigation. We called every Planned Parenthood National Abortion Federation facility in America, over 900 of them. And those tapes you can listen to. We recorded all the conversations. You can listen to them at our website, childpredators.com. And what you'll see is that they're openly conspiring to protect the men who rape these children. If you're an adult and you have knowledge of you don't have to know that the child is being raped or sexually assaulted. All you have to know is that the child is sexually active, or you have to have reasonable suspicion that the child is sexually active, because a 13, 14, 15 sexual activity. So if she's sexually active, by definition, it is without her consent. That has to be reported. And the way I came onto this idea was there was a situation here in the Dallas area where a young girl was taken in to an emergency room. She had been hurt in a car wreck or something like that. In the process of treating her, they discovered she had a sexually transmitted disease, and the hospital reported that. And it made it eventually, because of the nature of this situation, it made it into the newspapers. But I remember the physician in charge of the emergency room saying, look, when we have evidence that a girl's sexually active and she's beneath the age of consent, we're mandated by law to turn that in. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Every time a young lady goes in for an abortion, she's demonstrating that she's sexually active. And if she's a minor, that's a mandatory reporting situation. And so we knew the abortion clinics were not reporting, and we did this undercover investigation to prove it, and we did prove it. And I'm still telling you that to this day, or as you and I speak, they're operating a pedophile protection racket right now. And if that were not true, and I've said this hundreds of times on national television programs, if that were not true, they would have sued me the first day I said it. But here we are all these years later, no lawsuits, because they know that in a libel or slander suit, truth is an absolute defense. And we can prove that they're protecting these men to the detriment of these young girls.
So, Mark, we know a lot of the pro-lifers, they're out in front of those abortion clinics as sidewalk councils, praying in front of the clinics, different capacity. And now if they see a minor young girl being escorted into by a man or a mom or whoever into that abortion clinic, what should or can they do at that point? Because now they're saying to themselves, oh boy, that kid looks no more than 14, 15 years old. I remember Mark saying that there's a child predator project here. Planned Parenthood doesn't, or the abortion industry doesn't report. What should those good pro-lifers who are out there counseling and praying, what can they do at that moment?
Well, that's when we first released this information, pro-lifers all over the country picked up on this, and I was getting tons of calls, and I know you guys were too, about this issue. What can we do? If we see a 40-year-old man taking his 13, 14-year-old girlfriend into the abortion clinic, what can we do? What you can do is you can call the police, or you can call Child Protective Services and say, I have reason to believe, reasonable suspicion of a child being sexually abused. What we found was, and this is what I get back to what I was saying a moment ago, what we found was that we couldn't find anybody anywhere in law enforcement that would get behind this. I actually had conversations with people in law enforcement who said, yeah, that's an illegal situation and we should be investigating that, but we're not going to get mixed up in this abortion issue. That's your issue. You deal with it. And we could never get anybody in law enforcement to be interested in this. And it was really, really frustrating. And it remains frustrating to this day because it's still going on. There is nothing on earth that protects men who rape little girls more than legalized abortion. And the abortion industry knows that they're not going to get called on the carpet for this. They should be indicted for protecting these men, and they're not. And it's been one of the most frustrating things that I've ever encountered in the almost 40 years I've been in the pro-life movement full time. This has been one of the most frustrating things is you can sit here and demonstrate to people, here's your state law, here's what's going on. They're mandatory reporters. They're required to report this. They're not going to. They're openly telling these girls on the phone, when you get here, don't give me your real name or don't give me your real phone number or your real address. Don't tell me that the person that got you pregnant is 40 years old. Don't give me any of that information. They are actively protecting the men who rape these children. And of course, the reason they do that is very simple. The men who rape the children are the ones with the money. They're the ones paying for this. And what they also know is if they start reporting these people, the predators will stop bringing these kids to these abortion clinics, and then they'll wind up getting caught. Because if you're a man who's having sex with some little 12-year-old in your neighborhood, The thing that scares you the most is her father finding out. The thing that scares you the second most is her getting pregnant. So this is a national tragedy, and it's a scandal that is still going on, but it is still going on.
And of course, Mark, it's going to get worse, as you know, because of the borders down where you are in Texas are being flooded with immigrants coming over, and the sex trafficking of immigrants too. These illegals is also bad, and then again, they're being escorted into the abortion clinic too, aren't they?
Absolutely, and it's even worse for them because if something bad happens, there's not much documentation on that young lady being in the United States. We had a situation in California a few years ago where a undocumented young lady, I think she was 15 or either 15 or 16, was taken to an abortion clinic, and they killed her. They perforated her uterus, and she bled out at the abortion clinic. They were going to take her out and bury her in the desert, and the abortionist and one of his staff members actually got caught loading her into the trunk of a car, and they were going to take her out into the desert and bury her. Well, if they had, who's going to ever know about this? How would you know about it? And we have a hard time believing that the first time some abortion clinic tried this, they got caught the very first time. That's nonsense. And nobody believes that can possibly be true. So we know that this has happened, and I am convinced that it's still going on. If they kill or injure in some way, or girl gets raped in the abortion clinic and she's undocumented, she's setting it up. There's nothing really that can be done about it.
Right. So people now at the grassroots, as we know, right now the Democrats are in control. The pro-abort loving Democrats are in control of the House and the Senate, and they got the trifecta going on. And I think people are beginning to get a little discouraged. But you, I, and Father Pavone know quite well there's a lot people can be doing in their own backyard. Let's talk about that for a minute. I know you have some great ideas of things that people could sink their teeth into to help close abortion in their neighborhood. What are they?
Well, first off, let's understand something. And yeah, I understand the frustration and the sense of the sky falling that a lot of people in the pro-life movement have. But we've been down this trail before, during the Clinton administration, during the Obama administration, but the Clinton administration would be the most parallel situation to it. And I can remember, and I'm sure you do too, Janet, the week that Bill Clinton was sworn in, the pro-life movement melted down. I was getting phone calls, 15, 20 phone calls a day from people saying, it's over, what are we going to do? How do we fight this? And what we eventually found out was that, yes, this was the most radically pro-abortion administration up to that point, but there was only so much they could do. And we actually shut down more abortion clinics during the 8 years that Bill Clinton was president than the following years when George Bush and George Bush II were president. We closed down more clinics during that time because the pro-life movement got off its rear end and said, we don't have a president that'll do our work for us now. Well, actually, we never did have a president that was going to do our work for us. So we got up, dusted ourselves off, got off the canvas and went to work. And that's what we've got to do now. There's only so much that Biden, as much as he is a complete moral degenerate for the moral degenerates in the abortion industry, as much as they own him lock, stock, and barrel, there's only so much he can do that they can do. And we can fight. There are so many ways we can fight them. If we will get beyond the point where we think that our salvation is in having a pro-life president or having pro-life senators or having pro-lifers on the Supreme Court. I want to ask you this, Janet, to make this point or sink this point home. Over the years, how often have we seen pro-lifers, people who claim to be pro-life, get elected to the House and to the Senate or to a state legislature, or be elected president, or get appointed to the Supreme Court? How often have we seen that happen and then those people stab us in the back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's happened. It absolutely has happened.
It happens more often than it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, Justice Kennedy on the Supreme Court is a big example right there. And that's why I think what you're saying, Mark, is there's things we can do in our own neighborhood to help bring an end to abortion, and that's what we have to do. In spite of what's going on, because I remember
Ab-
those Clinton years too, how people were saying, "Oh, forget it." But boy, we pressed forward, and we did close a lot of abortion mills during that time, that the 8 years of Clinton. And I think what happens is people can get more energized when you don't have your team, in the winning position. You know what I mean? Then you're on more of the defense instead of offense. And sometimes pro boom, we can play good defense, can't we? So what are some
Well,
of
and
your ideas?
we don't have to play defense though. We can go on the attack, and
Yeah.
we just got to do it, and we got to be smarter about it, and we've got to stop looking at Washington D.C. and the Supreme Court. I'll give you an example of this that we're seeing right now. If there's abortion bills right now that are up before the Supreme Court. I mean, abortion legislation that's been passed in the states that's up before the Supreme Court. Do we know for a fact, other than Clarence Thomas, do we know do we have any confidence in all in the rest of them, any of the other ones? And the answer is, you look at somebody like Amy Coney Barrett. We don't really know what she's going to do. And we've had people that we had just as much faith in as we have in her that have stabbed us in the back before. So we don't know what's going to happen. The only person that's on that court right now that I would say the pro-life movement can absolutely count on is Clarence Thomas. He's the only one there. And with Anthony Scalia was there, we could count on him. But so we don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know is that we can control things in our neighborhoods and our own communities. And let me tell you what kind of put me onto this. You may be familiar with a young man named Mark Lee Dixon here in Texas that came up with this idea of getting cities to outlaw abortion within their city limits or within the county that they reside in. And it was kind of a Don Quixote type thing, and people were kind of poo-pooing it and so forth. And he was starting out in real small cities, like Wascom, Texas was the first one that he went to. And Wascom, Texas, city council voted unanimously to outlaw abortion in their city. Well, Wascom, Texas is a little bitty tiny city. They don't have any abortion clinics. I don't even know if they have a doctor there that does abortions. But it was the fact that they were able to get the city council there to vote unanimously to outlaw abortion. Now he has taken this to other cities, and he's been called by other cities, several of them now outside the state of Texas. And you have it now in cities in Florida that are considering it. You had 2 cities in Nebraska, 1 in, I think, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. He's up to over 30 cities just here in Texas that had outlaw abortion. And it's not all little bitty cities. The city of Lubbock, which is over 250,000 people, outlawed abortion by a vote of the population, not by the city council, by a vote put to the people of Lubbock, and it passed by 62 to 38%. So it was not even close. And the point is that there are a lot of things that we can be doing beyond that. I don't know what the long-term future is for that campaign. He's got some suits against him. Who knows how those are going to come out. But the fact is, we can do things in our local community, even if we don't outlaw abortion there, but just make it possible. For example, just in the political arena. One reason that we get stabbed in the back by somebody that we elect to Congress, and he goes to the Washington, D.C., and the first time an abortion bill comes up, he votes pro-abortion. One reason that happens is the pro-aborts will go to him and say, look, in your district is about 59% or 62% or whatever number they throw out. It's probably a lie, but nonetheless, he believes it. Your district is pro-choice by an overwhelming majority. If you vote on this bill pro-life, you're going to lose your seat next time. That may or may not be true. It doesn't matter. He thinks it is. And when you go to Washington, D.C., or when you go to your state legislature, the number one thing that these guys are concerned about is getting reelected. That's all they care about. And so if they're convinced that their district is overwhelmingly pro-abortion, that's the way they're going to vote because they want to keep their job. If we can start turning that around and show them that no, for example, using Lubbock as an example, if you're a congressman from Lubbock right now, you know your district is not pro-abortion. The pro-aborts are going to have a hard time selling you on that. When a public vote was just taken and an ordinance was passed by 62% of the vote to outlaw abortion, they're not going to be able to convince you that you ought to vote pro-abortion on a bill there. So what we've got to do on the political front is we've got to make it conceivable or safe. Let's put it that way. We got to make it safe for people in the state legislatures and in Congress and in the Senate to vote pro-life because they think that's a safe vote for them. Right. The pro-aborts have done a good job of doing just the opposite and making it look like, yeah, I may be pro-life, but my district is not, and I'm going to lose my job if I don't vote the way they want me to vote, and they're going to target me.
A good example of that, Mark, is what's going on with Manchin in West Virginia. As you know, he's a Democrat, but he does vote pro-life. And with this whole trying to get rid of the filibuster, he put a whole article out there. I think it was in the Washington Times or one of those papers saying why he believed we needed to keep the filibuster. And the reason being is his constituents raised their voices loud and clear. You're there because of your pro-life votes, and you better stick with us. And he was, he came out against the pressure from the party, the Democratic Party, saying, no, I gotta go with my constituents. We're going to keep the filibuster, and I'm still voting pro-life. So it does work. It does. When you hold their feet to the fire, it really does work.
This has always been, Janet, a grassroots movement, and we've got to
continue to be. So, Mark, I want to thank you for joining me today. And I'm going to tell everyone, please go to lifedynamics.com, make a donation today, help them out, because this new project is going to sizzle, and we're going to get it out there. As soon as it's ready, we're going to have Mark back, all right, to launch the project right here on Just Ask Janet. So thank you for joining me, Mark. And brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me, too, on Just Ask Janet. Remember to visit my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and follow me on all the social media platforms at Janet Morana. And until next time, Janet Morana, Executive Director. And remember, there are some abortions only you can stop and some lives only you can save. God bless.
I will be silent no more. I'm free from the